time for another Amazing Spider-Man movie series rant. Only this time we're taking a look at the worst characters. This is my short narration narration rant on the Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 quote unquote characters. To see the larger in-depth webcam version on my Super Beta 400 channel, click the link in the description box below. So with that being said, let's get started. Yeah, this will be a short list of me counting down the worst characters in the Amazing Spider-Man franchise and short reasons why he or she sucks. In the webcam portion, I give larger reasons. And number one is the worst character and worst actor in the series, and that's Peter Parker himself, Andrew Garfield. The worst, the most try-hard, blandest, and most pussiest Peter Parker of all time is Andrew Garfield. I would excuse every flaw with the Amazing Spider-Man if they at least got Peter Parker, Spider-Man right, and they got an actor who is capable of doing Spider-Man justice. Andrew Garfield is one of the worst actors I've seen. He is bad in every movie I've seen him in, and the Amazing Spider-Man was him at his quote-unquote worst. And he's only good when he's in a film, but he's not the focus or the lead character like in No Way Home. But Andrew Garfield was quote unquote terrible. The only reason he got the role is because he looked like Spider-Man. Nothing but a try-hard, edgelord, cocky show-off, hipster wannabe bad boy persona was what I was getting. Nothing like the quiet, humble outsider of the quote unquote comic books, cartoons, and every other adaptation. If you want to sit up here and argue, go to Andrew Garfield's, Peter Parker's Wikipedia page, and they will even admit in the summaries that this Peter Parker is a huge departure from his comic book counterpart. And for those of you who say, well, at least he wasn't a weak nerd, sorry, Peter Parker must be a nerd. And he ain't gotta be goofy like Maguire was, but he has to be a quote unquote nerd. This try-hard edgelord doesn't quote unquote cut it. And then people try to say, oh yeah, he was also an asshole. And people try to say, of course he's an asshole. He'll get better later on. No, he never does. Not until No Way Home. Not until No Way Home. He never does. He never learns his lesson. Bad jokes, cringeworthy dialogue at inappropriate times, and it's just the same throughout. His jokey nature almost got him killed by quote unquote Electro, which is another reason he sucks. He needs Gwen Stacy to do everything. The two incidents that made me hate Peter Parker were in this film, Spider-Man in this film, was the stealing of the intern guy's badge, breaking into Oscorp and never apologizing to that guy, and laughing when that guy was sent off, and not giving Harry, promising to give Harry his blood to see Peter Parker, to see Spider-Man for him, then appearing as Spider-Man just to turn him down, just to quote unquote turn him down. Peter Parker would never do something like that, man, especially not to his friends. Peter Parker, yeah. Then we got the next character, Gwen Stacy. Everyone likes to lie and hype up how good this character was, and likes to bring up how useful she was. This right here was the worst female protagonist of all time. Nothing but an asshole, overpowered, nothing but a useless asshole, overpowered Mari Garisu. They tried to create a character who was more active and more useful than her quote unquote comic book counterpart. They created a character in Gwen Stacy who was even more useless. Her whole purpose in the film was just to be Peter Parker's girlfriend and accomplice on various missions, then die to set up the next lead in Mary Jane. And she was a Mari Garisu. She wasn't useful. She was a Mari Garisu. She was good at everything. she was good at quote unquote everything. She even knew how to turn a grid to brutally murder out of character, brutally murder quote unquote quote unquote Electro. It makes her like a Marisu, and it makes Peter Parker look like a total pussy that he needs Gwen around. And this is not the comic books. Gwen was never involved in Peter's adventures. Didn't even know Peter was Didn't even know Peter was quote unquote Spider-Man. Didn't even know Peter was Spider-Man. So yeah, Emma Stone is not a bad actress, but apart from her looking like Gwen Stacy, horribly miscast. Just wasn't good at all. Just wasn't good at all. But it's almost not her fault entirely. It was the people changing the character up to where she's not supposed to be. Then she was an asshole because she gave Peter Parker hell and broke up with him just because Peter Parker did the right thing and kept her out of danger. Kept her out of danger. The one time Andrew Garfield's Parker was doing what he was supposed to do, and that was living up to what Captain Stacy said from the previous film. So yeah. And also Gwen Stacy in the comic books, yeah, she wasn't active in missions, but outside of Peter's life, she had her own life. So get out of here with the uselessness crap. They created a character who was even more useless and irrelevant, trying to one up and make it better than the comics. When normally I accept that, but here you were just not going to do that. You were just not going to do that. Follow the damn comic books. Then you got Then we got Harry freaking Osborn. Harry freaking Osborn, the worst character ever. The worst character ever in the quote unquote storyline. Nothing like his comic book counterpart in appearance or backstory. His whole rivalry and storyline with Peter just comes out of quote unquote nowhere. Harry wasn't even wasn't even mentioned in the first Amazing Spider-Man. Yet he's somehow Peter Parker's best friend. No, in both versions, Harry was a long life friend of Peter. So when Harry became evil, it meant something. In the Peter Parker Goblin, Harry and Norman Osborn rivalry is one of my all-time favorites behind the symbiotes. Behind the symbiotes rivalries, and you screwed it up here. And Sam Raimi got this. Sam Raimi, for the most part, got it right. This Magic Blood storyline is a ripoff of Star Trek Into Darkness. Into quote unquote darkness. Then they only did it just so they could do something iconic, and that was kill off Gwen Stacy. When it was Norman who killed Gwen Stacy, not Harry, and Harry was never Goblin before Norman. So garbage, and the worst Goblin ever. Not only do these characters suck, they're the worst versions of any character. The worst Goblin ever. Looks like crystal quote unquote meth head. And who's after Harry Osborn? Oh yeah, my boy Maxwell Dillon Electro, one of the best actors in the film, alongside Dennis Leary's Captain Stacy. Maxwell Dillon. Jamie Foxx was an awesome choice, and happy he got some redemption in No Way Home. But this character in this film was terrible. The complete opposite of what Electro was supposed to be. Electro has never been a sympathetic character. Except for in the cartoons, in the CGI and Spectacular Spider-Man cartoons and a Japanese manga. Electro was the complete opposite of what he was here. When he get in Spider-Man, when he got his powers in the comic books, from that point on, he decided he was going to rob banks. He could have anything he wanted. When he got the powers, he gained a superiority complex, thinking he's better than everyone else. He represents the antithesis, the Peter Parkers with great power comes great responsibility speech, where he's the total opposite. When you have all the power, you can have basically anything you quote unquote want. Electro, quote unquote Maxwell Dillon's Electro, he was never sympathetic, and what they tried to show here wasn't realistic. A guy who's a designer for Oscorp, which is not in the comic books. He's not a designer for Oscorp. He's never designed anything for Oscorp. But a guy in this position, they would never bully, nearly not to his face. He has an important job that someone has to do. You would never bully a guy who does a job like this to his face. So to have it where everyone was walking all over him and treating him like a nobody, completely unrealistic, and his motivation for hating Spider-Man was motivation for hating Spider-Man was stupid. He hated Spider-Man because he was quote unquote jealous, and people try to say, Spider-Man stole the spotlight from him. You can't be robbed of something you never quote unquote had. Idiot saw himself on screen. He thought he was famous. And he saw he was quote unquote famous. So like I said, it was just trash. Follow the damn comic books. Follow the damn comics. Trying to be bigger and better. And the comics were coming off even more worse and cringe. More worse than quote unquote cringe. Then we got my boy Rhino, another favorite villain of mine who was screwed in this film. You can take Rhino out of this film, and the film would not be any different. Not only that, it would be much better because he was only here to set up the now canceled Sinister Six spinoff. Sinister quote unquote six spinoff. This pissed me off because you couldn't even get, as you saw, Peter, Gwen, Harry, and Electro right. You got the audacity to bring up Sinister Six garbage. Sinister Six garbage. Yeah. Sinister Six garbage. Yeah. So yeah. Then it was just Paul Giamatti and a Rhino Zord. And people try to say, oh, the Rhino Zord is from the Ultimate comic books. No, in the Ultimate comics, it's a Rhino armor exoskeleton similar to RoboCop. And the original Rhino is similar to Juggernaut. You can Google and Yahoo image these and see their designs. You don't need to read the comic books. They got it wrong both times. And his backstory, stealing plutonium, was not this. His backstory was what you call it. People try to say, "Oh, Rhino's a dumb character." Bull fucking shit. Shows you never read any comic books. The Spider-Man comic books have made Rhino interesting on numerous quote unquote occasions, especially the originals where he's actually been an anti-hero in some stories. So get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here. You weren't gonna write. He should have been in the film. He was only here to sell more merchandise in stores and to set up crappy Sinister Six. Then we got the final one, Lizard. Lizard. I keep forgetting the actor's name. The actor wasn't a bad actor, but he had no business being quote unquote Lizard. And his quote unquote accent was a quote unquote problem. Problem. The worst Lizard, the worst Kurt Connors ever. In the comic books, it's supposed to be a Jekyll and Hyde. It's supposed to be a Jekyll and Hyde thing. You have the innocent Kurt Connors and you have the violent, sadistic Lizard. The violent, sadistic Lizard character, and that persona takes over, decides Lizard should be the dominant species and turn everyone into lizards. Here, it's just a dumbass scientist who has a missing arm, who has a stumpy arm. So what does he do? He keeps injecting it. Then he regrows his limbs, and then he decides, oh, the entire world needs to be quote unquote lizards. The entire world needs to be quote unquote lizards like him, who will only turn back to normal eventually because his lizard serum wasn't permanent. So as you can see, it was nothing but quote unquote it was nothing but pulling. Like Troby said, he goes from a sympathetic character to a maniacal villain in a matter of seconds. In a matter of seconds, Electro did the same thing, as did Harry Osborn. Quote unquote Harry Osborn. Like I said, Croc, trash. These films were terrible. They deserved the fell. And other characters like Aunt May and them, they weren't bad, but they had really no impact on the quote unquote story. I can remove all of Aunt May's scenes and plots too, and the film would not be any different. Actually, you'd have had a much better quote unquote movie. So once again, the Amazing Spider-Man films sucks, but this was the quote unquote narration. To see the larger, more in-depth webcam version, click the with the intro and outro. Click the link in the description box below. All right, time for the next franchise.